So good morning and happy Easter to you all. We are so glad that you've joined us for worship at South Church, a Unitarian Universalist congregation, which is aligned with UU principles of respect and appreciation for each individual and for an understanding that we're connected in one large web. We are so happy that you are joined us this morning. It's Easter. I have my Easter bonnet. And normally, I would wear my Easter bonnet with you all day long during the service. But because I am your new interim minister and you hardly know me, I'm going to take advantage to put on something on my head that I am far more comfortable with than a hat like this on Easter morning. So you stay with me for 1 second while I shift into something I'm really comfortable wearing and that I'll tell you about in a second. This is my fire department chaplain hat, helmet we call it. Notice the flaming chalice right in the center of it. I am the first Unitarian Universalist and the first minister to be a part of a unified corps of fire chaplains. I served the Leominster Fire Department and have for over 25 years as their chaplain. And I also am a founding member and part of the Massachusetts Corps of Fire Chaplains, the one and only statewide organized, recognized group of chaplains that have served and called to serve in many, many places. My role as chaplain is unique and different. Each event that I show up on, I have no idea what's going to be happening. This is just my helmet. And when we get back together, I will share with you and bring along my entire gear so that you can both see me in it and try it on yourself. Because some of you out there, I'm betting, have a call to be a chaplain. It is an honor to be with you as your interim minister. My name is Reverend Susan Suchocki Brown. Reverend Susan, or Susan is fine. Happy Easter. Welcome, keep coming.
The Shared Ministry Committee would like to remind everybody that they're extending the deadline to apply to become an associate through the end of April. The associate programs that we offer are fellowship, worship, pastoral, learning, and social justice. If you're interested in learning more information or applying to the associate programs, you can find more information on our website by searching Shared Ministry, or reach out to the office and we will put you in touch with a Shared Ministry Committee member.
Yonder come day, day is breaking, yonder come day, oh my soul, yonder come day, day is breaking, sun is rising in my soul, yonder come day, day is breaking, yonder come day, oh my soul, yonder come day. Day is breaking, sun is rising in my soul, yonder come day. Day is breaking, yonder come day, oh my soul, yonder come day. Day is breaking, sun is rising in my soul, yonder come day. Day is breaking, yonder come day, oh my soul, yonder come day. Day is breaking, sun is rising in my soul, sun is rising in my soul, sun is rising in my soul.
A few weeks ago, impatient for spring, I put some pear tree suckers in a vase of water in my kitchen window, hoping to force their buds to bloom. After a couple of weeks, nothing had happened, so I threw them out. But the next morning I thought, maybe I hadn't waited long enough. Maybe I was simply too impatient. Maybe things happen when they should, not necessarily when I want them to. Some childhood lessons are really hard to learn. So I retrieved the branches. I'd only thrown them out the back door. And I put them again in the water in the vase in the window. And in a week, white blossoms appeared. Excited, I filled 3 more vases with pear tree branches. I'm trying not to think much about when they will bloom, knowing and hoping they eventually will. I offered them today as the chancel flowers and as a reminder of the need for all of us to be patient with the world, with each other, and with ourselves. Another lesson of patience, as well as faith and community, is found in Passover, celebrated around the world this week. Bloody rivers, frogs, lice, flies, dying livestock, boils, hail, locusts, and darkness. 9 of the 10 plagues failed to convince Egypt's Pharaoh to free the Israelites. He offered to let just the Hebrew men go free, but Moses and his brother Aaron remained steadfast and patient in their demand for liberation of the whole community, the whole tribe. Finally, firstborn sons of non-Jews began to die. This 10th plague passed over the homes of Hebrews and led to the Pharaoh finally conceding. Liberation was won. The exodus from Egypt to the Promised Land began. That was more than 3,000 years ago, but the lessons remain. May the plague we are now facing pass over all our homes, and may we help each other find the patience and the courage in the community to wait for the buds to bloom. Good morning. My name is Cathy Wolff, and I am one of 7 worship associates who assist with Sunday services. To those virtually visiting South Church for the first time, and to those who have been here before, virtually and otherwise, welcome. The music is offered today joyously by Joanne, Connolly, Adam Gallant, Susan Adams, and the South Church Choir singing the Hallelujah Chorus, recorded in 2016. And one last note. We understand how important it is to connect and chat with each other during these strange times. That's why our church staff has arranged to have several social gatherings online during the week, including one before the church service on Sundays. But let's all try and refrain from chatting with each other during at least the prayer and the sermon, just as we would if we were sitting next to each other in sanctuary. Thank you. The chalice will be lit today by all of us. Gathered here on this day of tradition and mystery, we light this chalice of our faith. Gathered here at this season of greening and emerging growth, at this time of faith, hope, and trust, we light this chalice. Gathered here is a community of seekers, searchers, and seers, honoring the varied religious traditions woven into our congregation. We light this chalice. Gathered here to continue our journey toward wholeness, young or old, in memory or body, in belief or disbelief, in the circle of life and love. May the light of this chalice illuminate our paths. And now, standing if you want to, let us recite together our mission statement. At South Church, we nurture spiritual growth through worship, learning, and community. We celebrate the worth and dignity of all people, and we inspire one another to act on our faith in the larger community.
Good morning, everybody, and happy Easter. We're back with another story written for you by Kirsten.
And this is a story about a child named September, and this is a story about a stone. The story begins in the late afternoon on the day of September's birth, although really, the story was already well underway by then. September decided to arrive in this world in the midst of a frightening storm. September's parents had always planned to have an at-home birth, but that day they both watched out the window with concern as the trees blew wildly and gusts of rain pelted the glass. When September's mother started noticing signs of labor, she was more than a little frightened. They called the midwife and hoped she would arrive soon.
Now, September didn't know this yet, but their family had the most wonderful next-door neighbor. He was an older, retired gentleman who loved to garden and to tinker with things. September's parents had grown to love this neighbor as they came and went through their days, and they called that afternoon to let him know that the baby was on the way. The neighbor was pacing in his own house and worrying a fair bit as he watched the storm build. Then, around 4 o'clock, the power went out. The neighbor quickly moved around his house, gathering candles and flashlights into a box, and he headed across the lawn to September's house. As he arrived at the door, he saw, tucked beneath the leaves of a plant, a smooth stone. He bent and he picked up the stone, and he carried it inside, announcing himself as he arrived.
The parents turned and greeted him, both happy that he was there, but also clearly worried. They explained that the midwife had not yet arrived, and the already dark day was fading toward night. The neighbor put down his box of lights and walked to the parents with the stone that he found. "Hold this," he said. "Tell it about your worries. Tell it about everything that you're excited for, too. Feel how it holds the heat of your hands. Notice that it can withstand even the tightest squeeze." Then he went about setting up candles and lanterns throughout the room. Slowly, the room began to glow. The neighbor watched the faces of these young parents as they held the stone and whispered to one another. The doorbell rang, and as the midwife arrived, the neighbor left, leaving them to this special time.
September's mom held that stone through the rest of the birth. September was born that night. The storm slowly passed, and by morning there were sunbeams and puddles drying, and the power had returned. Over the next many years, September's parents picked up that stone nearly every day, and they whispered to it. They would squeeze it when they were feeling mad and tell it about all the wonderful things that happened in their days. They told the stone when September rolled over for the first time, when they started to crawl and walk, and so many other things.
September, in the meantime, quickly discovered that they lived next door to the most wonderful neighbor. As soon as September could walk on their own, the neighbor's yard was a favorite destination. They would help in the garden and help to tinker with things. September and the neighbor became the closest of friends. One day, as September was eating breakfast, the phone rang. Their mother answered, and her face looked sad. When she hung up, she shared with September that their neighbor wasn't feeling well. September would have to stay away for a little while, and this news made them worry.
The parents called for September to come into the living room. They picked up the stone and told September the story of the day the neighbor brought it into the house. As they held it in their hands, the parents remembered so many things that they had told the stone over the years, and they shared those stories with September. Then they handed the stone to September and invited their child to tell the stone about all the worries and all the things for which they were grateful. September told the stone that the neighbor was sick and that they were worried and sad not to be able to visit. The stone warmed in their hands, and they felt a lot better. The stone hadn't taken away the worry and sadness, but somehow the stone now held some of the weight for September, and it all just felt a little bit lighter.
A few days later, September was back in the window whispering to the stone and saw the neighbor come out into his yard. Holding the stone, September could almost hear the story of the first time they'd walked across the lawn to visit this dear friend. The stone seemed to whisper memories of gardening together, of laughing and tinkering and running about. September squeezed the stone and set it back in the windowsill, ran to grab a coat, and skipped over the lawn to reunite with their favorite companion. In the window, the stone sat, still holding the warmth of September's hands.
A stone isn't always just a stone. Sometimes we can use a stone as a tool to help us be steady in difficult times. It's really hard for our community to not be together in our church building right now, and Reverend Susan has a special request for all of us.
Yes, she wants each of you to go outside and find your own new stone. Choose the one that feels right for you. Hold that stone and think about all of the people of South Church, all of your friends and loved ones that you're missing. Put some love into it. Maybe some worry if you feel it, or whatever else you're carrying. Think about fun times you've had with this community. Feel how it holds the heat of your hands. Notice that it can withstand even the tightest squeeze.
Then, once you've soaked that rock with all that you want to put into it, find a spot, maybe in your bedroom or on a windowsill, where you can pick it up now and then and tell it a story of what's going on for you. Let it hold some of the weight that you carry. Tell your stone about the good things that are happening too. When you hold it, remember that all of us in your South Church community are here to help you hold these things too. Give that stone a good squeeze once in a while.
When we're all clear and safe to be back together in our beloved church building, we're going to have a special ceremony where we'll bring all our stones together like a pool of gems. We'll leave them there in a special way at our special church to represent all of the wonderful stories of who we are and what we've experienced. Until then, in the meantime, don't forget how much we love you and miss you. We'll see you soon.
This month's offering will be shared with the climate-focused organization 350 Maine. Some say this may not be the best time to be thinking about climate crisis, but I think it's a perfect time because whether we like it or not, we've been reminded lately that we are an interdependent species living on a fragile planet. So please give as you are able. The directions are on your screen.
Let's take a moment or two for some prayerful thoughts as we center together on this very special day. It is good to be in a space of silence and a space of meditation as we listen to the noises all around us, the noises of nature, people, of our homes, of those sharing our homes with us and those we have invited to be here with us. It's important to remember that we are never alone, and that even though we're virtually conducting these services, we hear you, we see you, we know that you're there, and we encourage and want you to be in touch with us with your prayer needs, with all of your needs, so that we can stay connected during this time. Let us especially today remember all those who have lost someone through the COVID-19 virus. And let us remember especially a cousin of Carlo Natoli. Her name is Susan Suchocki. She was a nurse from New Jersey, 25 years old, and died from the COVID-19. Let us remember her, her family, say a prayer for them, send them our healing thoughts. May they be at peace, knowing that memories and thoughts of them are with them during this time. Let's also keep in mind all of the other people who are on the front line, the doctors, the nurses, the healthcare workers, the nursing home, the people in the grocery store, our EMTs, firefighters, all the people who are out there helping to keep us safe and respond when we need it. May they know that we think of them, that we pray for them, that we hold them in our hearts. And I say, Holy One of Blessing, on this special day when we remember and think of the renewal, the resurrection of life, the possibilities before us, let us know that we are not alone. Let us ever be grateful for what we do have, for we are truly blessed that we can offer to others love and compassion and hope. Let hope be what we go forth with into our next week, and let peace be in our hearts and with our families. So may it be. Blessed be. Amen. It was early Sunday morning. It was the day after the Sabbath day of rest. It was the day after the day that was one of the worst for the small, struggling group. It was the third day after their leader, Jesus, deeply spiritual, fiercely loyal and fair, kindly and compassionate, a healing person, a wise teacher, a radical thinker, and one who was definitely threatening those in power, had been crucified. It was the day when the women were on their way back to the tomb to do the final ritual preparation before his burial. It was a day, just like any other day, for the women. They had been present on Friday during the crucifixion. They stood with his mother, sister, brother, and a few other followers. They could do nothing but be present during the worst time. They were there when his body was released, and they undertook the initial ritual preparations, readying him for the final burial ceremony. But they had to wait, for one of the days, as Sabbath day, came in between the worst day and this day. As the women woke on that Sunday and were getting ready to go about their tasks, they were talking about all that had happened and all that was ahead of them. And one said to the others, "When we get to the place where we left Jesus, I wonder who's going to roll away the stone." Now, that Easter event is a day that has been discussed, dissected, diagrammed, detailed, and had story after story told about it since it happened over 2,000 years ago. It is a story that forms the foundation for those who are Christian, and it is a story that Unitarian Universalists wrestle with and sometimes even avoid. It is a story that defies logic and remains a mystery. You know, when faced with mystery that defies logic, we try to make some sense out of it by telling a story, by inventing stories to help us find meaning, using metaphor, and coming up with a new narrative. And what I share with you this morning, this Easter story, is my story, my attempt to make out of something I don't understand some meaning. In my story, it is important that the women get to the place where they last left their beloved Jesus. When they get there, that the stone is already rolled away. In my story, it is important that when the women got to the place where they had last left their beloved Jesus, the stone was already rolled away. And when they looked inside, they did not see an empty space, but instead saw a person who shared a memory about something Jesus had told them. They did not see an empty space, but instead saw possibility and potential, and they were amazed. Now notice the use of the word amazed. They were not scared. They were not fearful. They were amazed. They were in awe. And the experience the women had of being in awe helps me to explain the stories that were told about him after his death. A story of possibility, potential, rebirth, and hope, born out of brokenness and pain. Sometimes we too have to know brokenness before we can know fullness and beauty and healing. And on the Friday that Jesus was crucified, many of his closest followers fled and ran to safety. They withdrew. They were frightened. The world as they knew it had ended. In the Easter story, little attention is told to the story between Friday and Easter morning, that Saturday, that Holy Saturday. But many and most of us can relate to that sort of day after something truly awful has happened. It is a day when nothing makes sense, a day of intense loss, grief, aloneness, destitution, and devastation. The day when we wonder how we are even going to take another breath. And then grace or goodness or the desire for life takes over and some, albeit minute, shift occurs and possibility appears. Life as we know it is not the same, but our breath and life will continue on. Most often this shift occurs when we realize we don't do things alone. We realize we are not alone. And often those we least expected are the ones to come in and help us. Now in the biblical book of Luke, we hear this story. But on the first day of the week at early dawn, they went to the tomb, taking spices which they had prepared. And they found the stone rolled away from the tomb, but they went in and they did not find the body. And the women ran back to the disciples and told them what they had encountered, but most importantly, the message that had been given to them. And the message was, go to Galilee and continue to preach the message I have given you. I am not dead. I want you to go out into the world and preach the gospel to everyone. And what is this thing that they call the gospel? It is the good news. And the good news from Jesus is that life is full of possibility and hope, and good works of feeding the hungry, clothing the naked, bringing justice and mercy and compassion to all who suffer is not over just because Jesus is not there. Jesus left the earth, but his ministry of loving all humanity as you would love yourself, and a message that even out of the unknown and the darkness of the tomb, hope survives and thrives. Jesus taught and trusted that though he was not there, his message could and would be carried forth by others. And this has been the enduring message of Easter, that something survives and lives on even after bodily death. Memory, shared values, shared experiences, the essence of a relationship remain. And this Easter message is confirmed and reconfirmed within the story about Jesus that his followers tell. It could have been a story of gloom and despair. However, his followers found great hope in seeing the tomb empty. In fact, the tomb had to be empty to teach that life is never empty. And the enduring message of our purpose, plans, is that who we are and how we live our lives is important, whether we are around or not. Easter is about us and our own rebirth too. In our culture, true, it is centered on a man whose life and death is shrouded in mystery and suspense. In spite of the fact that the resurrection myth is as ancient as the spoken word, in spite of the fact that the resurrection myth is as ancient as the spoken word, and in spite of the fact that the resurrection theme is found in all cultures, the story that gets passed on and paid attention to in our culture is the story of Jesus. We are here, and we need to develop our narrative about this story. It is perfectly understandable that those early followers of Jesus would have had a story that helped them remember him. There are few who could move and affect people as Jesus could, and he would not let his disciples be passive participants in life. Like the women who traveled with him, who were the life givers through healing, pregnancy, and birthing, Jesus too was a life giver. And why should this idea end at his death? The Bible stories do not tell of an easy life for those who chose to follow him, but speak of them all as being surrounded with the sick, the possessed, the military zealots, the Roman guards, the hungry, the poor, the lame, the unclean, and the status-free outcast. Yes, it was not an easy life for Jesus or any of his followers, and his means of death should not have been in that way, which was usually the plight of a slave, a traitor, a status-free person. His death had to contain a resurrection, a metaphorical rebirth. For from that empty tomb, he passed on all that he lived for, and all that he suffered for, and all that he died for. Without the women disciples finding the empty tomb, without the disciples finding a message of hope in that empty space, all that Jesus modeled, taught, and demonstrated by his active, involved, committed life would have ended that day, the days that followed their worst day. So why do Unitarian Universalists gather on Easter Sunday and dare to mention the name of Jesus? Not that we believe in the literal resurrection of a man, but that we believe in the rebirth, resurrection of the human spirit, the human community, the human capacity for awe, mystery, wonder, and renewal. Easter is about us and our own rebirth, our chance to begin over and over and over again as mirrored in the natural world. Today, I'm going to invite you to venture outside and pick up a stone to be your touchstone. And when we gather together again, you will be invited to bring that touchstone to the church. At this time of so much virtual reality, the touchstone you choose, I hope, can become a physical reminder of the foundation of this community. And when you connect with that touchstone, may you find strength, even in the midst of sadness and loss and grief, to model your lives in keeping with the lessons learned and all the people who are in your life now or who have ever been. And in the meantime, when you touch that stone, think of the people that you want to say hello to. Think about the pew you normally sit in, the feel of the hymnal in your hand, the sunlight through the windows, the creaking of seats as everyone settles in, the music, the words, the sharing. These precious memories are a touchstone. The myth of resurrection is an old message, and intertwined within that message, we can find hope, faith, love, and the possibility for finding joy in spite of struggle, for truly understanding that life and love are mysteries far greater than can be shared with mere words. This mystery is felt each time we enter into sacred space. This morning, we have entered sacred space. It is good. Blessed be.
we extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Happy Easter, happy Passover.
Hold on to that which brings you hope, and that which brings you joy, and that which diminishes any sorrow you have. Blessed be the world that sings the glory of rebirth in every root and flower, tree and bird. Rejoice and be glad. Love is our message. Peace is the goal. Bring love to all you meet and be at peace within. So be it.